Good morning and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN Content Capital. My name is Keaton Shaw. Season's greetings to you and to all. We're just days away from the big celebrations of Christmas Day. There will be some that will not have a Christmas this year. I usually end the program by stating this, but just to remind you, if you are able to and if you are willing, please donate just one can or one meal to make your brother or your sister, and I mean our family all throughout Trinidad and Tobago, please share with them, put a smile on their face, and make their Christmas just a little bit merrier. Anyway, welcome to this edition of the program. This morning we have quite a few things to discuss. If we are lucky enough, we may be joined by our usual Wednesday commentator. But for now, I'm joined by my co-host and colleague alongside me, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Morning, Keaton. Yeah, just with regards to Karen, we know she's traveling for the holidays. She did say that she could make the show, but I won't be surprised if today maybe perhaps things might be a little bit too complicated or inconvenient for her. But hopefully she'll be able to appear. In the meantime, however, there have been some reports with regards to how the retail sector has been doing for the Christmas season. Obviously, the Christmas season is one of the biggest times for retail in order to, well, you know, make a good amount of their revenue for the year. That is going slow, and I do wonder if this is just another sign. Those who know and go to some of the bigger malls on a somewhat regular basis would know, at least up in Port of Spain, that retail has a tough time because more and more people are looking to just order things online. And of course, after the pandemic was a point in time where people were having to figure out how to do online shopping even more so. Now that the pandemic is somewhat over, but not necessarily, but economically speaking it is, we already had that trend even before COVID, that online shopping or going away to shop was basically starting to become a norm for certain people. And it's not necessarily, you don't have to be rich to shop online. I do wonder now, because I think the retail sector makes up a significant chunk of the private sector, if it's just another sign of that sector slowly but surely shrinking because we haven't necessarily figured out.
No, I think that's obvious. I think certainly it's shrinking. I acknowledge the fact that online shopping was something that was, it seems to be an issue in terms of lost income, prior to the pandemic, and that's where the government sought to actually implement a tax on items that are purchased online.
The reason why I say this is I'm not entirely sure if the low sales are an indicator that the population is not spending for Christmas.
I think what it is that you're going to see something like this become a part of the norm until our economy recovers, if it ever does recover. It's just not something that you will see for Christmas. There's a Christmas rush. But you have to understand as well that following the COVID-19 pandemic, which we're all aware of, there are those out there who lost their jobs. Mm-hmm. There are those out there who lost their income. So households that were probably accustomed to two incomes are now reduced to one, or part of one, or part of two. What we're also witnessing, I think, is there's not much consumer confidence at this point in time. People don't have the purchasing power that they once had. There's not investor confidence either, which ties back into the retail sector. So that's actually all part of it. But I think also what we should realize is that with the Christmas rush as what we're accustomed to, there isn't going to be that rush. There hasn't been that rush. Maybe people are busy, but there are only a fraction of our population here in TNT which probably has the means and are fortunate enough to actually participate in online shopping. Following COVID-19 is one thing, but just look at what happened about a month ago with all the floods. People lost their homes, people lost all their belongings. Mm-hmm. All that is a factor to consider. So I know everybody's trying to make a dollar. I know everybody's working hard and trying their best to survive. But out there, if it was a dog-eat-dog game before, now it's just a dog-kill-dog game.
Here's the irony, though. Because we have high inflation, it actually means holding on to liquid cash is a bad idea. Because as money devalues, the money that you have in your account technically is reducing in its purchasing power. So the irony, of course, is, yes, you're saying people's purchasing power has reduced, but to some extent, in a very basic sense, you know, and I do mean very basic sense. I'm not advocating to do this. In a very basic analysis, there is something to be said about not necessarily holding on to money. Granted, of course, you still need to continue saving for retirement, for college funds, continue having emergency funds, you know, because you never know what could happen to your car, to your house, to your health. But to say that you're going to just hold on to money because you lack confidence in the system, I'm not entirely sure if that's going to be done. I think people will save as they would normally save, but for the most part, they might continue spending the amount of cash they used to. They might get less goods in return because of it.
And yet I disagree. I think that people are going to hold on to whatever little money they can. You see, the thing is that in economic terms, it's not recommended when you're facing an inflation. You want to actually have a robust circular flow of income, you know, to alleviate inflationary prices. However, at this point, that's entirely difficult given the situation, not only with the global economy, but with the local economy as well. As we pointed out, yes, there are many factors which affect our local economy. But, you know, we can get into this article very shortly about Derek Chin stating that Tobago investment is out of control due to crime. In other words, people are holding on to whatever little savings they have. Another issue that we're seeing in TNT, because people are holding on to their money, is because banks are no longer actually being sensitive to the fact that even though we've reopened, we're still in a COVID-19 pandemic and businesses have not returned to the same sense as they were before. So banks are now issuing penalties for late payments to loans. Even if you explain to the bank, listen, I have not received my salary on time, or I have not received my salaries yet, banks don't want to hear that, because at the end of the day, they have to make their money. So there is a level, confidence is one thing, there's a lack of confidence, but there's also a level of fear out of not knowing what is going to happen tomorrow. And because everyday prices are going up in almost every item, I think it was only flour that was reduced by 9% on the shelves, because the prices of these items are going up. People are stating, you know what, I'm going to hold on to this money, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I need to have something that could keep me afloat, at least for a reasonable amount of time.
There's two things I don't understand. One, why is it that we saw more competition between two telecommunication companies when Digicel was brought in to compete with TSTT? But we have what? At least four major banks of note, FCB, Scotia, Royal, and Republic. And it seems as though they're not really trying to compete. The competitive environment of the banks just isn't there, because their market seems stable, and you don't necessarily see them giving the consumer concessions. Rather, you see banks looking to try to find ways to charge consumers as much as possible to keep their profits high. The other thing is, what I also don't understand is, we see unions march, and we saw people march about crime, but we're not really seeing people marching with regards to the economy. And you see this in other parts of the world. Why not here? Because we know from our talks that there are people who are now, they've reached the point where they're working poor. They're not just, oh, I lost my job and I have problems making ends meet because of that. No. I have my job. I have the job that was sustaining me for however long, and now it could no longer sustain me in this climate. And I do not think that that is a small minority of people that are saying that. I think it's significant enough, and I am surprised that we're not hearing more of a public outcry to whoever their elected officials are. If it's the regional corporation, parliament, whoever. At this point, I don't necessarily care. I'm only hearing special interests in the media decrying what the government is doing on the direction of the country. I'm not really hearing a concerted effort from the population. And it's not, I'm not complaining and, oh, you're lazy and not doing your part. No, I am actually just confused. Like, at what point, what would it take for the population to actually voice their frustration?
I would recommend to you, if you get the opportunity, go on the street and talk to the man, because I've been doing that, and it's quite the opposite.
That's not... Hold on. Yeah, but that doesn't get to the ears of politicians.
It's quite the opposite for me. whether or not it gets to the ears of politicians, you have the unions marching. It hasn't gotten the unions far. Let me finish, right? 4% has been accepted, I think, by the Trans-Tobago Police Service, 9% by the NFM workers, and so on and so forth. And that's the thing. People are not concerned so much about the currencies of the economy as long as their money is full. That is the thing. That is how Trinidadians and Trinbagonians actually, look at the economy. If they get their wage increase, it's going to satisfy them to the extent that we could maintain this level of lifestyle. Within the private sector, there are people complaining. There are people that are suggesting that, listen, it's cruel how some of our employers are treating us. It's cruel as to what's taking place. We're seeing there's an increase in business and an increase in sales, and yet our salaries can't return to normal, or we can't get an increase in salaries because businesses are maintaining that they're still trying to recover following the losses of the COVID-19 pandemic. The flip side of that is because it's the private sector, not the public sector, there are those out there, the majority of which, at least based off of my experience, are of the opinion that it absolutely makes no sense or nothing is ever going to get anywhere if they try to take any action or do anything. They're actually fearful of speaking out or speaking up, whether it be towards the government, because they're in the private sector. So they don't really have that protection as compared to those in the public sector. And that is essentially, even though we're speaking about speaking out against the government, I hear what you're saying, but the people, or many of the people at least that I've spoken to says, where's that going to get me? What's the point in it? At the end of the day, I can raise my voice, I can speak as much as I want to, I can shout, I can protest. It's not going to get me anywhere. So let me remain sane. I'm already stressed out as it is, and let me try and do my best to see how I can survive given these times that we're in, this economic climate, and quite frankly, this socio-economic climate as well, which the standard of living is declining.
Okay, well, now, you see, before I was confused, now I'm frustrated. Because what that basically is telling me is that the citizens are like, yes, things are bad and they're getting worse, but I'm not going to complain. I'm just going to try to manage it. But I'm going to voice my displeasure privately. And when things get worse, then what? Because you're already having problems just trying to figure it out now. So does this go back to the whole mentality that we see in government? And to be fair, there's this saying on this show, criminals come from the people, police come from the people, well, politicians come from the people. So if it is a flaw in the thinking of the ordinary man, or rather the politicians, we could say that they share the same thought processes, the same potential limitations, faults, differences in perspectives, whatever. Really? And to say that, well, let's just hope for a miracle or a prayer. Maybe another war will happen, but food prices won't be affected this time, and we'll be bailed out of this situation further. Because I do then have to question, so most of these people, they probably just don't even bother to vote then, or get involved in the political process, but they will complain in a rum shop about who is the prime minister and what they're doing wrong.
Let me ask you a question. And I'm trying to look at it from both sides, because I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, it's easy for us to talk because we're sitting down in a public platform and we have an audience who may disagree or agree with us. So it's easy for us to talk, but some people don't have that opportunity, or some people just don't have that confidence or spirit. If it is, now we're looking at the private sector, because we've seen voices from the public sector speak a lot more than those in the private sector, at least openly. If it is in the private sector, let's say you speak to the management of a company. The management of your company has, for example, they've reduced your salary, or they've reduced your working hours, right? Whatever the situation may be. It's been like that for quite some time. Let's say you approach management. Management says, well, we're trying our best, and we're going to work as hard as we can for you, but things have not been the same as before, so we can't really help you right now. But we promise you that we're working for you, and things will get better. No problem. In the meantime, you continue to struggle, you continue to suffer. A couple of months later, you approach management. Management hasn't communicated with you. So you're approaching them again, all right? Same answer, same thing. And this time they say, we are going to speak to you. We are going to communicate with you. Okay, fine, fair enough. I look forward to that. A couple months pass again. Same thing. Prices have gone up. You have no idea where your company is heading. You have no idea where your job is heading. You have no idea of any sense of direction at all. You approach management again, because even though management said they're going to communicate with you, they haven't. So they come and you approach them again, you talk to them. Again, same answer, same thing, except what they're repeating now is things are going to look up, things are already looking up, things are getting better. And we promise you, we're going to work hard, we're going to get things done, and we're going to get this to you. This is a cycle that repeats itself over a course of a couple months, maybe 2 years, maybe a year, whatever it may be. Nothing changes, nothing happens. It grows a level of frustration when now you yourself are suggesting, as well as probably other members of the staff, what's the point in me voicing my concerns? What's the point in me complaining? Because it's not getting me anywhere, and quite frankly, I'm just stressing myself out even more.
Okay, so there's two things. First of all, generally speaking, the labor market is in a mess. That is in part because the voters, the unions, etc., have allowed it to become a mess because we have not spoken out about when the wrong things were done. We have allowed it to happen, and now that we can't bear it, this is what happens, right? Okay. Second of all, it depends, right? Some private businesses will be struggling to still recover, like my family's business that had to close multiple times, even when the economy was open, it still had to close because, well, it makes no sense to have a tourism business open when the beaches are closed and when flights are limited, etc., 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 and you basically have no customers. I don't know about what other areas of the economy had similar specific challenges, but those exist. Third, again, what is going on in the particular field you're in? But fourth, if the field is bad, on the third point, well then, it is what it is with regards to that industry. But fourth, and this is where the unhealthy labor market is coming back to plague us, the answer in the private sector for the individual, on an individual basis, on a micro level, if your job and your working conditions and your salary are not acceptable, then you could seek employment elsewhere.
But you yourself just said...
Hold on. You don't have to work in the same industry. I'm not saying it. Listen, times are tough. You go to extraordinary measures. I have seen people graduate from Princeton in Trinidad and not in petrochemicals and have to wait 4 years before they can get a petrochemical job. So it all depends on what you're willing to do. Are you willing to just complain in a corner, or are you willing to be proactive? And how are you willing to be proactive? If your industry is just bad all around, tourism industry to some extent might be bad all around, then you might have to consider moving on to something else. That said, my issue was not with private businesses. My issue was with regards to the overall leadership of the economy, right? And all of the messages and the signals and how support is garnered. And the general sense is, if the overall economy is bad, I am not going to protest if I am working at a bookstore. I'm not going to protest my bookstore. I'm not going to protest necessarily my employer, unless I have actual, written documentation that he's cheating me. If the economy is bad, I protest the government. Or I protest the opposition. If my MP is an opposition member and they're not really doing anything that I think matters, I'll protest him too.
So I didn't misinterpret where you were going with this. I was just giving you a flip side as to you see more protests in the public sector and the private sector. We have to go to a break. I just quickly want you to think about a couple of things. One, it's a complete contradiction what you just mentioned about you look for employment elsewhere, because if I recall correctly, you yourself a couple of weeks ago suggested that the employment market in Trinidad and Tobago, even within the private sector, is totally messed up. It's difficult.
That's why it's a problem.
It's difficult.
I already answered that.
It's difficult for people to look for jobs. So I thought it was rather contradicting what you were just saying. Well, you seek employment elsewhere, even if it's not within your industry.
Keith, I just said it. That's why the employment sector being a mess is an issue now.
Right. Fair enough. But also, where has protest gotten anybody in TNT? Let's take a break. When I come back, we'll continue this conversation, because where has protesting gotten anybody here in Trinidad and Tobago? Prime example, the candlelight movement. What has happened with that, and where did that get us? We'll be right back after this.
Your Christmas is safe with us at BCU. Well, he's credit you. interest Christmas loan at Police Credit Union today. Borrow up to $25,000 with affordable monthly payments. New members, you get up to $10,000. No interest, no installments until January. Apply online at www.policecreditunion.com. Loan subject to credit approval.
Making your home a work of art. Step into a spacious place of creative ideas for your home space. Our floor and wall tiles and natural stone is ideal for any use you need in your home. Toilet, bathroom sets and vanities lend design to your creativity, while jacuzzis and shower enclosures create the mood for dwelling on life's pleasures. Lamps and lighting fixtures add ambience and memorable pictures. Horseline Heights has and bath, making your home a work of art. Hostin's Industrial Complex, Union Road, Marabella.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Force's flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered,
the conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. only on WESN Content Capital.
Welcome back to the program. So my question before we head into the break is this debate that Sean and I are having this morning. I don't think protesting has gotten anybody anywhere in Trinidad and Tobago. And I think people are now, I think that is the attitude that people have adopted, because what's the point in me stressing myself out? There are those that will protest on a morning because of roads, bad road conditions. Up to now, some of these roads have not been repaired, but you don't hear people protesting anymore. And the issue also with the labour market here in TNT is, whilst I understand that you're suggesting, okay, you might want to look elsewhere, you don't have to sit down and take it, or you don't have to sit down and complain or be complacent. Essentially, go and look for other opportunities. It's not as easy as that.
I know that.
And then, ironically, from what I understand, there are jobs available in the private sector. Now, it may not be what people want. People have made the argument, I've gone to university for the last 3 to 5 years. I've studied hard, I've got my degree. I don't want to be a waiter or waitress in a restaurant. And there might be some of those who say, I don't mind being a waiter and a waitress. But Trinidadians, at least from business owners that I've spoken to, are lazy to the extent that they do not want to accept those jobs. They don't want to work those jobs. And they rather sit at home. And I don't know how they are surviving. I don't know how they are
From
surviving.
family members or savings, but most likely.
And probably
the
generational
former.
wealth. But the issue for me is that this entire situation here in TNT is really, really messed up. Because you said there are those who you know went to Princeton, graduated in what? The petrochemical industry.
Yeah, petrochemical engineering.
Right. And can't get a job in the petrochemical
Well,
industry.
eventually she did. But
she had to wait 4 years.
I think she had to work retail for 2 years, then worked in architecture for 2 years, and then got a job. And she didn't just go to an Ivy League school in the States. She got I think it might have been at least a partial scholarship, if not a full scholarship.
And I've been told that
her academic success was above and beyond what most
I've been told
people
that
in the
there are
country
law
would have.
students graduated from the University of the West Indies. They couldn't go to Hugh Wooding because they couldn't afford it. And then there were some who actually went to Hugh Wooding.
And they still can't
And they can't get a job because major law firms have cut their staff by 50%.
So, again,
they were working TT right here.
Let me go back to the jobs issue. When our successive governments, because again, to be fair, it's not as though the Keith Rowley administration started GATE all on its own and created this problem all on its own, right? So if there's any administration involved in the scenario, in this specific issue, they might be the least culpable because they inherited a mess. You have GATE. You're pumping out dentists and doctors and lawyers and business managers and administrators. You're pumping out MBAs. You're pumping out everything. But where are the jobs from the private sector to take these lawyers? There's only so many lawyers the government could hire. And of course, favoritism and nepotism and party loyalties or whatever will dictate some of that. There's only, you could build all the hospitals you want, but then supplying them is the next bottleneck in the chain. So the private sector did not grow. You could put more people to work at the port, put more people to work at WASA, put more people in CPEP gangs, put more people in URP. But that's not why you spent money on a college education so that you could then increase employment doing entry-level menial work that has no actual significance or opportunities for people with a law degree or a medical degree. So the entire labor market and how GATE was a part of improving the skills of our population was more or less a disjointed mess. It's more than one mess. And that's where we end up with that. And that's why now we don't have a robust private sector that could afford opportunities for various type of jobs, including more part-time work, more scalable work, more shift work. There's a whole host of things that you see going on in the States with regards to trying out different things to deal with their various economic and labor issues. We don't have that here because our private sector is, you could argue, still in its infancy. Now to protests.
Before you go to protests, let me ask you, what do you think the solution is?
Well,
because I hear your criticism. What do you think the solution is?
The trick is, it's difficult to say, well, let's just slash all the government jobs that are unnecessary now. As much as I'm saying that without any context is what needs to be done, you can't just necessarily do it all at once because that will still be bad for everybody, not just for the people who are taking a check and not providing any work.
So what you suggested with the government had invested heavily in GATE, but they're pumping out lawyers, doctors, they're pumping out
right, so graduates, right? They're pumping out graduates, but then they're messing with the labor market by taking too many people out of the labor force for jobs that don't matter. Some of the graduates probably did get a job in a ministry office or a corporation or whatever, and depending, not all of them are actually giving us anywhere close to the output that is justifying their salary. Right?
Are you saying
how many managers are in WASA right now?
Hold on.
How many managers are in WASA right now?
And that's actually a historical issue because you're stating that they're messing with the labor market.
When I said government, I don't mean this government, That's why I said this government is probably the least culpable with regards to this specific issue.
I hear you. And that has not been the case for some time because the government, as far as I'm aware, have really limited the amount of individuals they've hired. People have been reduced to 3-month contracts. And they've put in they froze OJT. So yes, you use the example of this government. To me, what I've also seen from this government, because I will be fair as best as I can, is that I've also seen this government realize that in the private sector, opportunities have been reduced. There's also a serious brain drain. So what we've done is that we've actually invested more in training individuals in skills and trades.
To go up okay.
Not to go abroad, to do it. Listen, hold on.
So
you know there's a possibility.
Communication is a problem because I know people that couldn't find those programs for skills and trades that ended up going into skills and trades, but they couldn't find the training programs.
The MIC, and I don't understand because, I mean, yes, I'm in media, but and I do read the papers on a daily basis. I listen to radio on a daily basis. But it's not difficult to find these opportunities. The thing is that as much as we're blaming
it's not difficult to shop online,
as we're
but
blaming
not everybody could do it.
with the government for the difficulties with their communications and whatnot, I am being quite honest with you. Yes, I was asking what Foster Cummings is doing. I don't know if he's done a lot in terms of youth and national service, but for quite some time now they've been advertising this youth farming. It's a part-time program where you go and learn the skills of farming and they invest in you. And then the second thing is...
All I know is inquiries were made
there is also
to people in the education sector, and they didn't know.
There is also, as I said, I'm pointing out MIC, for example. There's also WITEP. Do you know that highly likely, and in some instances absolutely true, that there are plumbers and electricians out there who earn a lot more money than we do?
Yeah.
Right?
But I also know that I haven't met a young plumber or a young electrician in a long time. In a long time. All of those guys were there from way before. I'm talking before I was born.
I don't know. I think
I was 4 years old when our electrician, I first met him.
I don't know. I think we're living in a different world then because my parents were doing some renovations and just the plumber and the electrician that they hired were quite young, probably a couple of years older than me.
About 4 years to tell me that.
Yeah. So I don't know if we're just living in a different world, but I'm seeing it more and more happening. I saw one individual, he's probably younger than you are. All right. He started plumbing with his brother. They saved up their money. They bought 2 trucks. Then they basically registered a company. And now they're doing absolutely well.
And that's the other thing. We don't necessarily understand entrepreneurship as a culture per se. We kind of lost it because that's what Dutch disease does. It says, oh, everything has to be oil and gas and then white collar, white collar, white collar. Be a lawyer, be a doctor. And the problem is we're somewhat saturated with a lot of those things, with petrochemical engineers, with lawyers, with doctors, etc., etc., etc. We're saturated because of GATE and because the economy didn't necessarily grow enough to keep up with all of these graduates. And one could argue perhaps this is an excess of GATE. Maybe we didn't need to have so many positions in UE dental school or medical school or law school, right? To graduate so many people. Maybe it should have been a more limited graduation and try to figure out, okay, what is it that the country needs? Yes, it's fine if 1 or 2 go abroad, but the amount of unused doctors or misused doctors that we have, because, yeah, we have all the general practitioners that we need, right? But we still can't figure out now how to graduate specialists, etc., etc. So there's a lot of complications there, but regardless, it goes back to the fact that the labor market is in somewhat of a mess. And just to point it out, WASA, when the last time it was mentioned publicly, I think it was something like 460 managers or something like that, which floored us. We couldn't see how that was necessary. Well, you know what? Apparently this week, WASA put out a tender in the papers hiring more managers. For what? I don't know.
They're hiring a new chief executive officer. And according to the Minister of Public Utilities,
just CEO?
Passed, there was one other position that was open. I know that the CEO is the one that was being advertised. There was another one, I can't recall the top of my head. It's just those 2 applications. There's 2 positions that were being advertised.
Yeah, sure, because I was told it was also for managers.
Did you see the...
okay, no, I did not.
Exactly.
So you got me there.
Exactly.
Now, okay.
And also, I hear what you're saying. I've heard everything that you suggested. I don't necessarily disagree with everything. My opinion differs slightly. My argument will differ slightly. And in some instances, I completely disagree. However, I also believe that whilst I myself, I don't want to contradict myself, I know opportunity is limited. And I've had very little confidence in certain areas. For example, I wonder what Paula Gopi-Schoon has done as Minister of Trade and Investment. I don't know what has Penelope Beckles done as Minister of Planning. I've even asked what Foster Cummings has done. But I've also realized that there are opportunities out there. What also has happened is that people have invested in themselves and tried to diversify for
Yes.
the COVID-19 pandemic.
Have a side hustle.
And you see that actually working in some instances for quite a few people. I think there is opportunity out there, as limited as it may be, and even if you don't want to do it, you'll be surprised. Even if you're a laborer now, if you are doing renovations to your house, if you're doing construction, you realize labor is much more expensive than materials.
Part of the problem is we had it too nice with the oil money. Too many people, and this is the issue, too many people got used their ambition in life because they've seen other people do it. Yes, there's the thing about when you see people in a gang, you want to live that nice life with the easy money from crime. Cool. There's also, I want to live the nice life from easy money from a government job where I barely have to do anything. We've reached to the point, Keaton, where I have been told that they cannot retain workers on jobs that pay a check more than we make. That pay, I mean, not necessarily a great amount, but it's giving them a salary and they basically have to do nothing. They just have to show their face and not make it too obvious, and they don't have to do anything. Even that, there are people in this country who are so lazy, they're not even willing to do that.
Get rid of them. There are people out there who are willing to do that. There are people out there who are willing to do
No,
that.
I want all of those positions gone.
So I still believe, Trinidad and Tobago, listen, there is some opportunity out there, and yes, going to universities to get a degree, they've always said that is your passport to the world. But it's amazing, as they say, history repeats itself and how this cycle is changing. We've now gone back to a place where a degree is essentially a piece of paper. That's what we've gone to. I'm not discouraging you from going to school. I'm not discouraging you from getting your tertiary education. But a tertiary education, it doesn't have to be the pressures of studying law. It doesn't have to be the pressures of becoming an accountant. It doesn't have to be the pressures of becoming a medical doctor. If you can, my parents always told me one thing, and I'm grateful for the lessons that they instilled in me, but I'm also grateful for the fact that they supported me up until this morning. My parents always told me, it doesn't matter what you do. As long as you work hard, as long as you're honest, as long as you're clean, as long as you have integrity, we will support you. Keaton, if you want to be a plumber, if you want to be a farmer, you be the best plumber and farmer possible. Keaton, we will find a way to ensure that you get the necessary training and you get the necessary qualifications to be a plumber. And you go out there, you be a plumber. And that's the thing. My parents told me that, and I was fortunate my parents told me that, and I didn't have the pressures of, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be a doctor. I was lucky in that sense. But now, when you look at it, plumbers, electricians, masons, carpenters, tilemen who just lay your tiles in your house, individual laborers who just come and paint your house and earn a daily wage. These individuals are making a lot more money than
The
they
good
are.
ones.
And interestingly enough, and there's a side effect to this on the economy as well, because if your business is not registered, you're obviously not being taxed. So they have individuals who could probably be making close to $2,000-3,000 on a daily basis, and none of that is taxed, and they live a good life. I spoke to a barber, a young barber. He was 19 years old. He was excellent in what he did at 19 years old. He said he was thinking of going to university to study because he wanted to work offshore. He said, at the end of the day, I realized that I have a talent here. He utilized it. He says, the amount of money that I was making on a weekly basis just cutting people's hair, right? The amount of money that I was making on a daily basis, living a comfortable life. You know what he's done? He's now invested in himself. He's bought a van, he's fitted out that van, and he does house visits using that van.
Folks, we had to take a break, but I just want to point out, look up Steve Harvey and the man who cut Steve Harvey hair, of how far cutting your hair could go, because it could go even further than that. Let's take a break. When we come back, I want to answer the question with regards to protests. And we have a clip from our friends, from our friends in the production about, well, what could a government do? Stay tuned.
It's the season to be jolly. That brings a smile. That lasts a lifetime from Simon's Musical Supplies. We have drums of all kinds. Quattro, marimba, guitar, trumpet, clarinets, and flutes. At Simon's, we have it all for you. A violin, a mandolin, in steel hand, a piano or simply a music stand, music books and everything for a band. Simon's Musical Supplies.
Come, visit our new location, 24th Street, Port of Spain, or call 625-6412.
Musical dreams all come true.
Better Value Limited has been making gift giving easier and more affordable for over 26 years. Power tools, indoor, outdoor furniture and accessories, mini appliances, designer fragrances, houseware and home decor products, and all your bridal registry items. Now in stock, our stylish loft bed and study desk combo unit for just $16.50. Better Value Limited. Call 235-3709 or visit us at Princestown or Gullview, or check our Facebook page.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
As the case last year, the objective is to provide a welcome ease for consumers, which is obviously on top of what has happened already for the year, and we feel that the timing is right with respect to being able to do this in a significant way. Having faced about 33 months of significant economic challenges, COVID, the ashfall, Hurricane Elsa, the war in Ukraine this year, we believe that at this Yuletide season, consumers will certainly benefit from the 17.5% reduction in prices on the day of goods on the day that attract VAT, and therefore will be able to stretch their budgets even further than previously anticipated. Only goods are eligible. Eligible goods must be available for sale with immediate issuance or delivery to the customer on the day. Orders for goods that are not in stock do not qualify. Hire purchase sales are eligible. This is to facilitate those persons who may not have the ready cash to be able to make purchases at this time. Credit purchases, however, or goods on consignment or from wholesale distribution centers are not eligible. Let me repeat. Credit purchases or goods on consignment or from wholesale distribution centers are not eligible. Last year when we did the assessment, it came in at just around 4.5, given obviously with respect to the increase in sales on the day in relation to that. So the data that we have been able to mine demonstrates that obviously, notwithstanding the little seasonality with respect to the fact that it was on the day that we gave the waiver. It is very much affordable in the context of being able for government to be able to sustain it.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. That is the Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs in Barbados, Ryan Strawn. And it's important to note that while the Bayesian government is basically saying that they will suspend or remove VAT on certain commodities for the Christmas season, I believe, essentially, it's not on all items, but at the same time, it's still going to cost the government millions of dollars. Gasoline, diesel, liquid petroleum gas, guns, ammunition, cigarettes, alcohol, vehicles, and I believe hotel accommodation or any sort of accommodations, guest houses, etc., is not included. And this is just one area. It's going to cost the Bayesian government millions of dollars. It's probably going to be a significant chunk out of their government revenue. But there's a benefit to that. As you mentioned before, Keaton, one of the things with regards to harsh economic times is to keep the flow of money going. And a limited suspension of VAT here, particularly over the Christmas season, could have potentially helped money flow. Yes, it would cost the government a loss of revenue to the tune of millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. However, I'm not necessarily saying that it should be for imports. You're not necessarily going to put that for gasoline and certain other things, new cars, etc. This is Christmas season, retail. Certain food items are VAT-free. You could maybe make other food items VAT-free. Certain retail things VAT-free. That could not only help local retailers, but keep money in the economy flowing. And I think it's potentially worth it to do it on a limited basis. And this is why I'm saying, back to the protest questions, I'm not necessarily, yes, I understand your employer might be mistreating you. Yeah, I get that. But the overall guiding light of any nation's economy is the political leadership. Yes, the media has a part to play with that. Yes, the opposition has a part to play with that. And obviously, the government has a part to play with that. And we're not really seeing any sort of real, yeah, we see complaints. But where is the suggestions? Where are the solutions? Where are the attempts to try something new and different, so that we don't necessarily just keep plodding along as how we've been plodding along for the last 8 to 12 months. And I understand that protests don't seem to work, but the Candlelight Vision movement was suspended or was halted because of Easter, and you could argue it was rightfully suspended because we saw the COVID surge out of Easter. Now, the hypocrisy would have been that Easter vacationing was allowed, and that contributed to the surge, one would argue, right? So you can't have your cake and eat it too. You should have put an end to both, or you should have allowed both. So I'm not necessarily convinced that the Candlelight Vigil movement died out because it was ineffective. The unions are on a different case entirely. They basically cry wolf about everything, but it all boils down to something. We want more money, we want more money, we want more money. And I don't think their reality is quite the same as the rest of the nation's reality. In fact, it might even be different to some of their own peers in the public sector. So I don't think a lot of people outside of the specific unions care what the unions have to say anymore. When Petrotrin's big complaint was that people can't afford to pay off their loan for their new car, I really just lost interest with regards to the OWTU at that point.
I think the bulk of the government's income should really be coming from sales tax rather than value-added tax. But at the same time, this government is not going to take such an initiative. Because we've seen this government, property tax is one thing that they're looking to re-implement.
I think they're trying to fast-track that, and that's the whole issues with the local government reform and the one-year extension.
Well, the whole argument is for local government. My opinion on that is just another way of getting more money, because Trinidad and Tobago has no money as compared to Trinidadians who have money. You have the Minister of Finance also arguing that an inefficient tax collection system is what is, also not helping the situation with our economy. Then you have the government having to pay out $1.6 billion in VAT returns. I think what you're going to see is that the government is going to try and squeeze every penny or every single cent that they can get from the citizens through taxation. That is what they're going to do. Now, we've seen in the 2021 budget where the Minister of Finance reduced VAT or removed VAT on many food items. I think he was very proud, and when he exclaimed pigtail was one of them. But you're not going to see any more measures such as that taking place. I recall that Minister of Trade and Industry, Paula Gopi-Skoon, said the government is monitoring inflation. When actually questioned as to what the government is doing to help the situation with regards to inflation, she gave an entire thesis on what inflation is and factors affecting inflation. She didn't answer the bloody question. She just said that they were monitoring the situation and that they were going to implement measures. Of course, that never happened. And that is the thing. I hear what the minister in the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Strawn, he was arguing, but that's not applicable to Trent Bigwa this time.
I mean,
the government has taken an entirely different approach.
I mean, this is, our Minister of Finance is the man that said that the cost of fuel did not increase because we put a cap on the subsidy. It increased due to gas stations. Now, while I understand that, yes, if oil prices were low, then it's obvious. But the price of gas did literally go up. It's not as though the price of gas didn't go up when they capped the fuel subsidy. The price of gas did go up. Effective immediately. It was the one thing that was effective immediately from the budget. But the Minister of Finance is trying to say, no, that did not cause increased cost of transportation, increased cost of shipping and distribution internally in the country. No. It was just price gouging. Taxi fares and maxi fares, that was just price gouging. And I just want to know, well, if you can't get, you might be right, but you need more than just your wage. You need actual hard, solid data, right, to say that, this is the actual literal case. I don't believe he presented us with any sort of data. He just said what he had to say. That's cool, but it flies in the face of basic economics. So why am I going to then take him seriously when he wants to, tout his ability and his capacity and all of the things that he has managed to accomplish, when you're right. If it worked for the banks want to nickel and dime you, I'm pretty sure the government is saying, why not us? Let's nickel and dime them too. Because again, the other thing is, this is the Minister of Finance that wanted to say, well, we have an $8 billion deficit. And then we got more revenue than expected. So now he's taking pride in his $1 billion surplus. But we know, and I asked this question when the budget was presented, did the deficit include certain money that the government owed? In part to themselves, because TNTech owes power gen money, owns the other electrical generators money, because the government owes TNTech money. And that's just one example. That was not included in deficit. AFCL was not included in deficit. MTS for schools is not included in deficit. A whole host of other contractors and money owing is not included in the deficit. Because we have a $1 billion surplus, but they can't pay off some of their debts, which amounts to millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars.
And we're further in debt, by the way. We're just taking 2 loans from the
Right,
IB.
yeah, and then there's the foreign loans that we have to pay off. So yeah, $1 billion, ooh, but we're probably still in the red, right? So we're gonna nickel and dime the people. And for what? This is the real question. What do we get for this nickel and diming? In what sector have we seen real results, real significant development? I don't mean a road is paved or a walkover, right? We have one lane of a flyover and everything else is essentially just new roads being paved on the ground. We have a one new lane, new direction flyover to south. That is, with regards to our road transportation network, that's the only major development we've had in how many years? They're pushing through a Diego Martin flyover, which the people I know in Diego Martin don't understand why it's there for. If anybody from Diego Martin could give me a solid reason why it's needed and how it will benefit, please call in, because I honestly would like to know. I'm being told 2 certain Diego Martin residents it makes no sense. So again, where is the benefits for the money that the government's collecting from the people? Because I don't see it. I don't see an improvement in service. I don't see digitization. I don't see more reliable service. I don't see PTSC buses all of a sudden being able to keep up with maintenance. I don't see water for all. I don't even see water for all on a weekly basis, because they have some places that don't get water for weeks upon weeks, if not months.
What's happening now?
Right? I don't see an end to power sharing. load sharing on the power grid. Some people just lose power for a little while, not because anything went wrong, but because they can't meet the demands. I don't see an improvement in the public bureaucracy. I don't see the politicians being more attentive to the people. Right? I see a lot of more CPEP gangs and URP gangs and grants and grants and grants and grants. But again, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, you potentially set up the infrastructure where he could more easily get his nets fixed and buy his boat and get gas that is more affordable. Yes, I know I was one to advocate for the cap, but still. You set things up for the man to be able to fish, you teach him how to fish, he could feed himself for a lifetime. Where is that mentality?
Ladies and gentlemen, we have to break for WSN's News on the Hour, and when we return, we'll open up the phone lines where you, the viewer, can contribute to this morning's discussions. We'll be right back after this.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. 6 succumbed to COVID in the last week. Gender Affairs Division launches Home for Migrant Girls. St. Augustine MP pleads for flood victims to be given grants before Christmas. And internationally, deadly California earthquake leaves thousands without power. Now for the details. 6 persons have succumbed to COVID-19 within the last week. The Ministry of Health's weekly dashboard states that the total number of deaths thus far now stands at 4,277. Meanwhile, 174 new cases were recorded, taking the active case count to 186. The rolling 7-day average for deaths is 1, while for positive cases the figure is 25. Currently, there are 36 persons hospitalized with the virus. The Gender and Child Affairs Division has successfully opened the Home for Migrant Girls, which became operational on December 16th, with the handing over of the keys to the management of the St. Jude's Children's Home. The home will provide appropriate support services to migrant girls in their overall development. It will create a secure and culturally relevant setting, which has as its underlying philosophy the reintegration of these young girls into a family unit. Services which are in place will support mental and psychological rehabilitation, as well as appropriately address any legal matters in collaboration with relevant agencies. St. Augustine MP Khadija Amin is pleading with the Minister of Social Development and Family Services, Senator Donna Cox, for grants to be given to flood victims before Christmas. Ms. Amin is making the call for residents of Bamboo Settlement No. 2, Real Spring, Valsain, Spring Village, and St. Augustine South, who were badly affected by flooding some 2 weeks ago, to receive the ministry's disaster relief grant, food support grant, clothing and uniform grants in order to help restore their lives after the devastating floods. In international news now, 2 people have died and tens of thousands of households were left without power after a magnitude 6.4 earthquake rocked Northern California. The tremor, 215 miles north of San Francisco, has caused widespread damage to roadways. Anything that was on the walls broke off the walls, said J.B. Mathers, a resident of the coastal city of Eureka. Authorities have closed several roads and warned the public to brace for aftershocks. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
Your home a work of art. Step into a spacious place of creative ideas for your home space. Our floor and wall tiles and natural stone is ideal for any use you need in your home. Toilet, bathroom sets and vanities lend design to your creativity, while jacuzzis and shower enclosures create the mood for dwelling on life's pleasures. Lamps and lighting fixtures add ambience and memorable pictures.
Wholesale lights, tiles and bath, making your home a work of art.
Oceans Industrial Complex, Union Road, Marabella.
Your Christmas is safe with us at PCU. Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union. Your Christmas is safe with us at PCU. Police Credit Union. PCU. Police Credit Union. Get an easy zero-interest Christmas loan at Police Credit Union today. Borrow up to $25,000 with affordable monthly payments. New members, you get up to $10,000. No interest, no installments until January. Apply online at www.policecreditunion.com. Loan subject to credit approval.
It's the season to be jolly. That brings a smile. That lasts a lifetime from Simon's Musical Supplies. We have drums of all kinds. Quattro, mara, guitar, trumpet, clarinets, and flutes. Musical dreams all come true. At Simon's, we have it all for you. A violin, a mandolin, steel pan, a piano, or simply a music stand. Music books and everything for a band. Simon's Musical Supplies.
Come visit our new location, 20 Bolt Street, Port of Spain, or call 625-6412.
Musical dreams all come true.
Thank you very much, Denise Martin, for WSN's News of the Hour. Ladies and gentlemen, let's open up the phone lines now, where the viewer will, where you, the viewer, will have the opportunity to join the discussion this morning and share with us your opinions and thoughts on the conversation. Now, if there's anything else that you would like to contribute in terms of any other stories that we've missed, which is quite a lot actually, feel free to join in the discussion.
Yeah, folks, just some things to be aware of. Please call in before calls start to tab the phone lines later on in the segment. Also, please try and make your points quickly so that other callers would have enough time to make theirs. We're talking about maybe 2 minutes max if you can. Outside of if we have any exchanges, questions, or so forth, we might want to ask you, or if you have to ask us, just ask your question quick. And finally, when you call in, when you're on air, please mute your television so that you listen to the phone and don't listen to your TV. We have a caller from San Fernando. After this call, I want to finish the point I was making before the news break. But San Fernando, good morning.
Hello, good morning, caller.
Jump in Sean's camp with respect to the issues of gate and the implications it has had on the labor force in the country. I think one of the issues is that we wanted to improve the level of education within the system. So what happened is a lot of people took advantage, especially in the public service and the civil service and all those other state agencies, WASA, TNTech. People took advantage of it, not to, in my opinion, not to improve the service,
Yeah.
to improve their position of getting a better salary. And that has never trickled down into a better service.
Yeah, that's the problem there.
And that is the problem there.
Yes.
And I think, and back into Keaton's area, where Keaton said about solutions. You know, one of the things I think we have missed the boat with is that we have been, as you said, Sean, we've been producing, we've been putting out, we have been manufacturing, so to speak, graduates. And we have not looked at the external labor market and making this into a business.
Yeah.
We have so many people out there that are, so many countries that are looking for doctors, that are looking for professionals, and somehow with all the resources we have put into this system, we have not seen, it has not borne the fruit that it should have.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that one of the things that we need to look at is, can we export some of this labor? Because what's been happening is the best and the brightest and those who can afford has been swept up in the whirlwind of brain drain.
Yeah.
So we have to stem that issue there. So you're on a good trajectory this morning with respect to the pros and the cons of this thing. I think this is something that we need to ventilate a little more. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you. I think you have a good point there. We tend to import a lot of labor, but why not export as well? I mean, CNT is full of brilliant minds, you know.
I mean, it might not just to find graduates jobs, just to find them jobs. It might not be the total solution to the problem, but it would still be a partial solution to the problem if we could just do that alone. If they're foreign jobs.
We have a caller on the line with us from Rima. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Season's greetings to you all.
And to you.
I listened to your discussion this morning. And in my time, the university used to accept 5,000 students a year. Now it's 20,000. But the problem we have in this country is about the system. Because when we focus on the doctors, the lawyers, the pilots, the engineers, the accountants, the education system is totally academic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we forgetting the trades, we forgetting the music, and we forgetting the sports. The problem with the press communities is that the youths are unemployable. Because when they go through secondary school and they fail and they come out with nothing, at the age of 18 or 19, to go now to learn to put on tiles or to fix an engine and the life pick up with them, they don't have time with that, so the mind get blown.
Yeah.
So what we're really supposed to do is change the system and put in more vocational subjects in these former junior secondary schools, so that when these children come out, they have a skill, the psychomotor development of the children. Because if you look at it in the parliament, everybody have doctorates and all kind of degree, and they cannot simply they can't solve problems.
Yeah.
Imagine you voted for an MP, but the MP not coming to represent your view. They never do what you think.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So they're not solving our problems.
Caller, I think if I'm not mistaken, it's you who had the saying about a PhD. What was that exact saying?
Common sense. There's no PhD. A P, a H, or a D in the word common sense.
Yes. Exactly.
Right? And we have too much educated people there who only thinking about theory and everything is top down. So you find out the Prime Minister and them balance the books.
Yeah.
So in the eyes of Moody's and all these other rated agencies, Trinidad is doing well. But the quality of life of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago is horrible.
But even one of those ratings, we're not doing that well. Yeah. We're staving off disaster, barely keeping ourselves afloat.
But caller, I want to thank you for your contribution because we do have other callers.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
You too. All the best.
Thank you, caller, for pointing out the education system needing an overhaul. I know we spoke about it before in other contexts in the past, but we didn't necessarily connect it to this issue. And he's right.
I like the point you made
about
about people being unemployable.
Yes,
and that,
exactly.
That goes beyond education. That could be attitude, mindsets, simple little things like that. But hold on, we have a caller.
Is formative.
We have a caller on the line with us from Chagones. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning.
You talk about the employment situation and problem. With employment, the key is efficiency and effectiveness. If you're in the private sector and you do not address that, you go bankrupt. If you in government and you don't do that, you get what we get now. Right? When you have things like CPEP and URP, what is the purpose of it? Everything they do is done by a government department which is not doing it. Why don't put those same people in the government agencies? Save all that excess overhead and use my favorite, the annual administrative report, to show where you are administered. You talk about shortage of plumbers and electricians. We used to get our bulk of these from TNTech and its predecessors and WASA. They had the best. Now they are giving out contracts and using private people. And that goes against the principle of government and special purpose agency. When you put a special purpose agency, it's to do the work, not to contract it out. And unless we address it, the whole thing boils down to governance. Unless you have any questions.
No.
Professor, I
like the last point.
I just want to know on two things on a side note. How are you keeping? How are you doing?
Well, I am coming along. Thank you for asking.
I really hope that things get a lot better soon. But my second question is, when you get better, let us know when you're going to start campaigning. Right?
Campaigning for what?
I think you have a perfect argument to be in public service, even though you're retired. Our Prime Minister is over 70,
but
so...
he know it.
Right?
He complained to the public that Kamla was 4 years behind in the annual administrative report. He know it.
Yeah.
But all our politicians right now, all of them took it.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank
Professor.
you, gentlemen.
I want to
have a good day. Thank you.
Respond. Thank you for that last point. Contract labor. Contract labor, I think one of the big reasons is because of the party politics and what the previous caller, I think, pointed out, where the MPs are not representing your view. Again, the issue is party politics. Now, I did say what we see in ATHA, maybe that could be the start of a de-emphasis on party politics. I'm not saying parties need to be over or to end, right? But to some extent, the individual candidate, we need to take them more seriously and vote on them based on their merits, because I'm kind of tired of people saying this UNC or that PNM person, waste of time. Somebody voted for them, except they just took a blind eye, saw red or yellow, and decided to put an X. They didn't actually look at the name and say this name is a good name, right? And Professor, that thing with regards to trying to utilize all of these excess government workers, they would quit because most of them don't actually want to work. And that goes back to what you were saying with the current generation, because people aspire to what they see. So some go into crime, some go into government work. I see that especially in Tobago. That is the dream for too many young Tobagonians.
I think I know the reason for a lot of people getting contract rates from these companies, because you're right. Why is it that I am paying people per shift, like an overtime and all that? If I have a shift system twice a day, hold on. Like in the Water and Sewage Authority, for example, and they're working full-time, you get paid a standard salary. That way I don't have to have overtime billing hours and
not just that.
Projects and contracts going on for days and weeks when it could be done within a couple hours.
It's not just that. Contract workers could be swapped out.
What I've also realized is that not realized, I think it's blatant, it's obvious. Contract work here in TNT is a form of repaying finances of those who have supported your political party. A prime example is following the 2015 general election. There was an article in the newspapers that showed that there were various contractors who actually benefited so much under the People's Partnership, some billions of dollars in contracts, who financed the People's Partnership, which is why campaign finance legislation, campaign finance reform is needed here in Trinidad and Tobago to try and remove this level of inefficiency. It's a similar thing. Those same contractors who were taken to court under this government are also now receiving contracts. Why? Well, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it's some family relations, nepotism, or maybe it's finance as well. Who knows? I see Calco as being one of the contractors that are getting a lot of contracts now, whilst, if I'm not mistaken, they were taken to court under this government. But that's a story for a separate time. The issue is contracts have become a way to repay support, and I bet you Sean.
But also in our ministry, if a lot of the office staff are on short-term contracts, right? When an election happens, I could swap that. I just don't renew your contract and give contracts out to people that are part of my
if your surname was different, who knows? He might not be a WSN. He might be working as the chairman or a board member of TTT. That's just how it is.
I mean, so folks, again, call in. Don't wait until the last minute because we usually do have too many callers at the last minute. And also, I like the timing that people have been given. The calls haven't been too long. And for those who don't know, please mute your TV if you call in when you go on air. But the point I was making just before the break, where is the results from all of the nickel and diming and the taxation and the revenue generation? The government says they're not getting enough revenue. Collecting it, as the professor says, is a problem because they're not doing a good job of collecting the revenue. But the point is, now property taxes on the horizon. Where's the results? What are we seeing for this? And I would argue that the country might be better off if we just get rid of some of these taxes, right? Just get rid of some of these taxes and just be done with it because we're not actually seeing anything for it, right? Just maintain what we have to maintain. Don't worry about trying to fool me with development projects because I ain't seeing nothing. Just maintain what you have to maintain. Tax what you need to tax for the basics. Get rid of some of these special whatever, blah, 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 blah. Cut taxes. Cut your expenditure down because you're spending a lot of money and I'm not seeing nothing.
I think in the next year, listen to the words of the Prime Minister very carefully. Next year's local government elections next December, so you're going to see a lot of work taking place.
And now, to be fair, I understand why politicians do it, because the memories of people are short-term, and if you pave roads when you now get into office and the road is fine, they will forget that you paved the road.
No, as I said, that's the thing. You can leave a pothole for as long as you want. People don't remember the pothole. They remember the fact that it's paid after so many months. It's that relief that they really remember and they really appreciate. At the same time, I think also with respect to what you were suggesting about we're not getting anything, the Minister of Finance himself laments the fact that there's an inefficient tax collection system. Yet their solution is not to fix that. Their solution is to actually what? Implement more tax.
But not just that, to replace the revenue authority. And the problem is,
inland revenue with a revenue authority.
You need to show us why this is the solution. Because what is to stop the same problems from the previous body from coming and plaguing this body? What is to stop it? Right? We don't know.
Yes.
What is this, when
you actually hire individuals and listen, government has already advertised the position for Water and Sewage Authority's chief executive officer. They already know who's getting that job. They just have to do formality. What will fix it is that if you put individuals who are well qualified, well experienced, and have the expertise.
Exactly. What is the solution? To split WASA, to have new authorities for various functions of WASA. Cool. What does that say? That says there are more jobs to go around. Funny that. But what is to prevent the problems that we see at WASA from just eventually taking up root there? Absolutely nothing, because that has not been addressed.
It's a similar situation with HCC. HCC is now being restructured into 3 separate entities, which I can see is going to cause a lot of confusion and bureaucratic red tape. I don't know how this is going to make this, the entire program more efficient. I could rather see it actually causing a lot more confusion, but I would give them the benefits of the doubt, wait to see what happens, and hope that
they couldn't even distribute relief grants.
They're not going to be empowered. They're probably not going to be in power. Most of these ministers, anyway. There might be a PNM government. They might not be the same ministers to actually fix the issues of which they've created.
Keaton, they couldn't even give out relief grants without administrative difficulties.
Well, we have a caller on the line with us from
How hard is that to give away money?
Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, I just want to say, I believe we have too many people in certain fields, like in lawyers and doctors and all these sorts of things, and so over many countries as well. And everybody is studying to become these people, and that creates a problem. If people eventually who know somebody will get the better part of the work and all the sorts of things. And that gives me to worry because my granddaughter is majoring in economics and finance, and she is due back shortly. She's coming back from this week actually.
Oh, okay.
I hope everything goes well with that department, but she's going to be highly qualified, so I have no problem with that. So, gentlemen, I want to wish you all the best for the season. I sure this is my last call because I'll be busy tomorrow and the after. And enjoy the season and be safe with you and your families, and take care, and I'll hear from you all in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Enjoy this time with your granddaughter, and thank you very much for your well wishes. All the best to you and your family as well for the season. Enjoy it. share this moment and these times together, create memories, and yes, we will see you in the new year. And finance and economics, by the way, well done to your granddaughter.
Yep.
It's not the easiest of nothing in university is easy, but that certainly is. That was one of my toughest, macroeconomics especially.
I was thinking, as Digicel was speaking, going back to solutions with regards to our labor market and GATE. I understand trying to put controls on GATE, right? Because we've seen the problems when you don't. We could export some of the labor, which I think, at least to provide people with opportunities, helps with regards to giving our young people a chance to develop. But we also need to consider, okay, we're investing because we want to grow our skills here. If we have a problem with specialist doctors, because we have a glut of general practitioners, we have a glut of doctors, graduates, but we don't necessarily have specialists. That's where the shortages, where the hospitals complain.
Major shortages.
Why can't GATE have specific programs where individuals are selected for scholarships to go and learn specialties abroad to come back to help fill that void? It's specific, and it could be done on a small scale. It doesn't have to be this whole big project where hundreds of millions of dollars has to be pumped into at once.
This is where we're
on a
actually
small scale.
having to import the majority of our nurses and doctors because of the shortage of specialists. People simply cannot afford to fund their studies.
I find that's crazy that we don't have enough nurses. With GATE, we don't have enough nurses.
And yet the nursing students will completely disagree. But we have a call on the line with us, and I feel sorry for them. I keep in contact with one and the issues that they are facing. Wow. We have a call on the line with us. Final call of the morning from Digicel Martin. Good morning.
Hi guys, thanks. Good morning.
Good morning.
I've spoken about those scholarships and lack of jobs enough times. This morning, I just want to talk about Mark Pereira, please. Yesterday, while I was holding on, my brother called to tell me that Mark Pereira had died. So when I came off, my son says to me, yes, but it's how he died. So I was in shock. But then this is a place where you can be killed in your beach house, in your bed. Babies' brains can be blown out by Coast Guards while they're being cradled by their mothers. I mean, this country is just really, really insane. So Mark was a popular art dealer, we know. 101 Gallery was right very close to you all. He's just made a significant contribution to art and art history in this country. It's a huge loss to this country and the art community because everyone knew him. But we have this nonsense. We have a Minister of National Insecurity who continues to speak from, it's just crazy. Keith Rowley had said this was a public health emergency some time ago. Back in July, we needed to find solutions to solve this. We have to focus. I don't think we're ready for the timeline yet. When is the timeline? When are they going to do something? When are people going to train their children? When are we going to get rid of all of these thugs? Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, caller.
And I would like to point out that while I do believe that we need to have the soft measures, the long-term measures, the key point of that is those will be to help prevent our young people from turning to a life of crime in the future. That does not deal with the situation where there is a generation of criminals that are willing to use violence. It is reported, it is believed the motivation was to rob him of a very expensive ring that he was seen wearing all the time. I don't necessarily know what that is true. But, but my point is, while we have not necessarily seen, relatively speaking, a large wave of violent robberies due to the economic situation, we have seen violent robberies, right? And to your point, there might be a whole host of violent robberies. It's not necessarily leading to murder, and they might go unreported, right? Or they don't make the media.
So 500 murders, 590. Yeah, I think plus at this point. I think more news of murders this morning. Home invasions and robberies, many of which are unreported. So I think the murder toll is actually higher. I also believe that all we're hearing about home invasions, it's a lot more happening and it's just not being reported by the media. I don't think you have the media in Trinidad to report on the level and the number of crimes being committed on a daily basis.
We went to Tobago for a vacation. I think it was summer because father lives in Tobago with the business. So we went over there to spend the vacation with him. When we came back, our home was burglarized. More or less our appliance were missing. I can't remember. As like a 4 or 5 year old, it didn't affect me that much because they didn't take my toys, so I didn't necessarily care at the time. But our home was burglarized. We had to get new appliances for just about everything, I believe.
I think we've all been in that instance as well, because I recall as a young boy.
These things make news?
I recall as a young boy, we were returning home, and we were actually held up within the home. I remember the individual with a cutlass, and you know, I remember that situation. I don't want to relive it too much now, but I faced that as well. I know what it's like. Yeah. You know, but anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's where we'll conclude this morning's edition of the program.
Just to point out, I agree with the caller. We heard a lot of bluster earlier in the year, and now things have gotten bad. Where is at least the leadership for the country? Is that too much to ask? Communication seems to be difficult for politicians. I don't understand. I thought that was a basic requirement to be an effective politician. How do you get elected otherwise? I don't know.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to all our callers, to all our viewers. You won't make Talking Point as it is, but I want to thank our directors, and I want to thank all the staff here at WSN for making this possible. My co-host and colleague, Mr. Shaw Michael Small, I'm Keaton Shaw. On behalf of the station, wishing you all the very best for the season. The days ahead are going to be quite busy, but enjoy it. And remember, you can just donate one can, one meal. You put a smile on somebody's face, and you make their Christmas just a little bit merrier. Have a great day. Today's a good day to have a good day. And we'll see you again, fingers crossed, tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.